AFTV, Arsenal 2, Luton Town 0. Turkish, another win in the bag.
Yeah, it was just in 3 points. I think we all expected a better performance overall. Probably expected more goals, but you're going to get some of these games. You're going to get some of these games, and the clean sheet was important. I think, everything that we built this season comes from the defensive unit that we've managed to build, or Arteta's managed to build. So clean sheet intact, couple goals with all that, rotation. Take it.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say you probably expected a bit more from today's game. But is that before you saw the changes that we'd made before the game?
Yeah. I thought Martinelli or Saka would start. So to see both of them not starting, and then the changes overall, which was about 4-5, I think, overall. It was like, all right, this might be a bit of a still win, but I don't think it'll be as many goals as I thought it might have been if we had a Martinelli or Saka out there from the beginning. And lo and behold, that's what it was. I think we started well. The openings were there. We were winning the ball back in great positions, but it was just the final third. Havertz had a couple moments in the first 10 minutes, didn't quite work out, and it just looked like one of those games where we're going to get goals, but it's not going to be an abundance of chances. And Smith Rowe popped up. Cool, and I'm happy for him because I'm sure we're going to get into him. Might as well get into him now because his availability has been up and down this season. I think the majority of the season people have assumed he's been available because of training images and maybe Arteta mentioning that he's on the cusp of returns, but it's never quite happened for him. And this could be a great season for Arsenal. So it's good that he's got a start in there. It's good that he's played a part. Because if it is to be a great season, come the end of it, and we do win a Premier League title, every point, every goal towards those points matter. And today he was the difference because he was integral to both moments, winning the ball back for the first one, and then setting, I forgot who it was off on their way, Havertz. Yes. I think he passed into Havertz. And then the second one, he made the run into space. Luton left a hell of a lot of space for him, but someone had to make the run. He made the run, was composed with the final ball. It looked like he was going to cut it back to Havertz initially, but he kind of waited, and then looked for Reece. Reece missed it, but we still got the second goal. So Emile Smith-Rowe was a difference maker. Man of the match, for sure, faded in the second half, but I think the game faded in the second half.
Of course, absolutely. And obviously you mentioned those players that came in today quite as a surprise in a way, and you're looking at Reece Nelson, you're Emile Smith-Rowe, Thomas Partey, of course, coming back and starting his first game since coming back from injury, and Zinchenko coming back in as well. Out of all of those guys that we didn't kind of expect to be starting this game, I know Emile Smith-Rowe, who else impressed you?
Partey, I'd say, is probably the next one on the list for me. Didn't do much or anything great, but just seeing him in there, keeping the ball ticking, in drops of the shoulder, working himself into space. We've forgotten about him. He's somewhat a forgotten man now because of Rice coming in, dominating Jorginho. He's been a gem for us this season. But Partey's, a 10-10 Partey, a fit Partey, a solid Partey, he's up there. He's up there. He's probably is the best of the lot. Well, I think Rice has, gone up there with him now. Very, very different CMs or DMs, however you look at them. So for me, going into the last, 8 games of the season now, with Partey finally back, finally getting minutes, very different to last year where we was losing key players at this time.
Yeah, absolutely. And on Thomas Partey as well, how do you think we go about integrating him back into the squad? Because we've seen it for a majority of the season. The preferred midfield three has been Declan Rice, Martin Odegaard, Kai Havertz. And that may be because Thomas Partey hasn't been available all season. But Kai Havertz in the last few weeks has been doing quite well. He's been scoring and stuff like that. I know he's not in that midfield position. But when he's not been playing in that midfield position, Jorginho's been playing well as well. Is it a case of Thomas Partey just going straight back into the team? Or do you feel like he has to earn his way back into this team?
Brighton will be a interesting one. Brighton will be interesting because I expect Jorginho will come back in, but would Partey suit that game more, considering Brighton will give it a go and will leave space in midfield. So it'll be interesting to see what Arteta does because, the word of the season has been control. And I think Jorginho has brought, not that Partey doesn't bring control, because Partey brings control and more, whereas Jorginho is more of a safe bet. And with Partey having missed the majority of the season, I'm not too sure Arteta really trusts him as much as he did before this season. So we'll see what happens. I mean, it's a good conundrum to have, whether we play Rice and Jorginho or Rice and Partey or Partey and Jorginho in some games. There's 8 games to go. Very different teams, very different circumstances. So I'm sure both Partey and Jorginho will get their due minutes next to Rice.
Of course, absolutely. I'm going to bring it back to a name that I mentioned just a second ago, and I always love to ask you about him because I know your opinions on him. Obviously, he got his assist today, which was great.
Yeah.
But Kai Havertz, his overall performance, what did you think?
It's like, you know what it is, yeah? It's still not good enough. Like, for me, it's never going to be good enough for the wages he's on because I always take that into account. I don't disagree when people say he puts himself about. I like that.
Yeah.
I don't disagree when people say, you know, he's had an impact this calendar year. I've liked it, for sure. I don't disagree when people say aerially, you know, he's given us something different. I agree. So it's not like I disagree with a lot of people's positive opinions or what they've taken from him so far. It's just that for me, it's not enough. And people, when he scores, even if it's a tap-in, will be, you know,
immediately jump to you.
Dancing, jumping in my DMs, at me everywhere. If he scores a simple tap-in. But they're not doing that when, you know, really he was non-existent against Man City. Wasn't the worst of the lot, but the attack in general, including him, who's the highest paid, wasn't. Today, again, he was out there. In terms of his name, opinions on the panel for the watch-along or in and around the live chat, not much said about him. But it's another game where our highest paid player, you know, hasn't really done much at all. So for me, it's still not good enough, but we're top of the league, albeit for 24 hours or so. We're competing for a Premier League title. So I don't really want to dwell on that because, in my opinion, we can still win it. And if we do win it, great. You know, I'm still going to have people chucking Kai's his name into my face and, you know, trying to make a meal of it. But like this season, I think, you know, he's played a part in winning us points, but he's also, more often than not for me, not lived up to what he should on those wages.
Absolutely. And obviously you mentioned, we're top of the league at the moment. For now, we've obviously got to see Liverpool play Sheffield United tomorrow, and it's going to take an absolute miracle from Sheffield to get anything out of that game, you'd think. How confident are you for the remainder of the season? Obviously, we've got some big games coming up that we'll speak about in a moment. But, you know, in terms of the run-in, the three title favourites, I suppose you'd say us, Liverpool, Manchester City, we've probably got the hardest of the run-ins going into the end of that. How confident are you feeling going into that?
It's hard to tell you how confident I am, you know. I mean, the other day on Big Six, I just, you know, I went off on one and I said, we're going to win a major in the next 18 months. And that wasn't something I put thought into. So I think that must mean I'm not the most confident for this season because we have got the hardest run. And it's two teams we're competing with, two teams that have been there, done it, two teams with more experienced players, and so on. So the odds are stacked against us for sure.
Define major, by the way, because obviously I'm assuming you mean like a Premier League and a Champions League. Do you put the FA Cup in there anymore?
FA Cup for me is it's not on the Premier League but it's not Carabao Cup either. So the FA Cup is in its own thing. The middle one. Yeah, it's in its own thing. If we're talking domestic competitions across world football, FA Cup is probably it is number one. It is the domestic cup with the most heritage, but I'm talking about Premier League and Champions League now. We don't move into Emirates and wait 15, 20 years to talk about Carabaos and FA Cups. I think next 18 months we will deliver a major. This season, one game at a time, man. One game at a time. Because look, Liverpool will beat Sheffield United, and then this weekend we have Brighton away. They have United away. City have, I forgot who they've got. I don't expect us all to win our games on the weekend. So someone, in my opinion, will drop points.
And then obviously moving on after the Brighton game, we've got the big one coming up on Tuesday. Champions League's back. Bayern Munich. How confident are you going into that one?
I'm confident, man. I'm confident. Don't get it twisted. This is Champions League, and, you know, Champions League has brought the most painful moment and memory being an Arsenal fan. So I know what it can bring, but I'm confident. I look at Bayern this season in their league, not great. Listen, I know Tuchel's more of a cup manager than he is a league manager, but I just look at Arteta's record against Tuchel when he was here. I look at the way Arteta's built this side. I look at what Tuchel's struggling to build over there. And I say we are favourites for that. You know, Bayern have the heritage. You know, they can get it done, of course, but we are favourites for it. And I do expect us to beat them over both legs. You know, the first one will go a long way in deciding it. I think we should come out of that first leg with a 2-goal margin at the very least.